what is going on. So I am going to keep talking about this. I don't care if people turn around and goes, you're a wafist, because my safety and the safety of women in this country is paramount. That is way more important than offending certain communities who, quite frankly, have men with medieval values when it comes to women, and I ain't standing for it. So I'm going to keep on this subject.
On PC to do so. But I believe it's more important to be factually correct than to be politically correct.
In today's video, Alex Phillips delivers a compelling factual rant, sharing a personal and vivid account of the crimes she and others have faced while living in London. On a side note, this is not just happening in London, but all over now in the West. Do our governments care? Of course not. Keep the natives scared and busy, whilst they bring in new laws on ways to control the people. This really does need to stop. Watch to the end, as there are so many important facts throughout this video which have been highlighted.
Now I'm going to do something which most journalists and presenters wouldn't dare do. That is going down the route of a particularly taboo story that is close to my heart, shall we say. And I'll tell you why. It's all about crimes and migrants committing crimes. And I'll tell you why this is particularly close to my heart, because to coin a favourite phrase of the left wing, it has been my lived experience over the past 3 years or so that a lot of crimes happening against women especially seem to be committed by people who aren't from this country. I've been followed home with a man in one of those Afghan kolpal hats chuntering away in some language. All the way to my front door, I had to hide in my neighbour's house and pretend I didn't live in my house because he was lurking around outside trying to do indecent things to himself. That's right. I've also had my phone robbed off me by a Roma woman with a scarf on. And I'm like, yeah, what are we doing here? Who are these people? Why are we importing all this stuff? I cannot walk down the street where I live anymore without weird men leering at me, making comments. Look, I'm not one of these Me Too movement women. When it was builders whistling, wolf whistling from vans, I don't care. Sometimes it brightens up your day. Because what they don't do is they don't get into your personal space. They don't trail you. They don't physically approach you. They don't follow you to your front door. It's a very different, sort of more harmless thing, a wolf whistle, than some of the stuff I'm being subjected to now. And some of the stuff my best mate who lives around the corner, again, her lived experience. Also, guess what? A woman with long blonde hair. She has 4 teenage daughters. All of them now have at some point been sexually assaulted. They have been groped, they have been followed. They are scared living in London. What is going on? So I am going to keep talking about this. I don't care if people turn around and goes, you're a wafist, because my safety and the safety of women in this country is paramount. That is way more important than offending certain communities who, quite frankly, have men with medieval values when it comes to women, and I ain't standing for it. So I'm going to keep on this subject.
To be honest here, who really is offending who? The mass majority of these immigrants coming into our countries do what they want to do, as the law doesn't seem to be able to touch them, and what's even worse is, they know this.
Now, one thing I think we need to do in this country is publish statistics on crime by nationality. We don't do it. Apparently we don't keep them. We're too lily-livered. Oh, we keep statistics on the victims of crime by nationality, so we can turn around and go, oh, look, it's all poor people who are not from here being targeted. What about the fact that actually, if you look on, there's this brilliant website about organised crime around the world. The contributors to that are people like the CIA, Interpol, Europol, and they've got all the stats of who's committing crime where in what countries. It's an amazing deep dive. You can sort of go onto this map and zoom in on a particular nation that explains all the sort of trends and patterns. About 90% of our organised crime was being committed by Albanians. I mean, for crying out loud, what are we importing?
Now Alex brings in some very frightening facts and statistics.
Now, countries that do actually publish their statistics, Scandinavian countries, I've got some of them here, and so I want to sort of run you through a bit of this. Now, Denmark increased its level of non-Western born immigrants between 2020 and 2023 by a staggering 158%. 158%. Turns out, at the same time, crime went up by 31%. Is there a correlation? Well, sex offences went up by 248%. And when you look at their league tables, the vast majority of those sexual offences are being committed by men who were not born in Sweden. They weren't even born in European countries or Western countries. That was Denmark, sorry. Now, Sweden, in that same period, their level of non-Western immigration went up by 86%. Overall crime went up by 24%. Is there a correlation? Well, I don't know. Rape went up by 359%. Even the Prime Minister of Sweden has turned around and said, you know, perhaps we were a bit naive when it came to our immigration policy. So there you go. These countries do publish league tables of who's committing crimes by nationality, and believe me, it makes for stark reading. We need to do that in this country, because if we're not honest with ourselves and the situation we're in, people like me are at risk. When I get the tube home to West London from East London, I am at risk, and I don't want to live in a country that doesn't value my safety enough to have this conversation. Now, a country that might find that this is soon going to be in train is Ireland, because they had 3.8 million as a population, and that's staggeringly gone up to 5.3 million in just a matter of years because of, yep, you guessed it, loads of inward migration, a 39% increase in non-Western migrants.
That is absolutely staggering.
The Irish, it seems to me, are already flexing their muscles, the Irish public, and getting pretty annoyed at some of the tent cities popping up. And believe you me, if there's going to be an insurrection on this issue anywhere, I reckon it'll be Ireland. So let's cross over now and speak to the president of the Irish Freedom Party, Hermann Kelly, and get his thoughts on this. Hermann, how are you doing?
Hello, Alex. Great to see you.
Yeah, well, great to see you.
It is very brave of you to talk about this, because we both know it's very un-PC to do so. But I believe it's more important to be factually correct than to be politically correct.
Why should we be PC in the West when all these immigrants really don't care? Hermann Kelly is right here. We have to work with what is factually correct and not politically correct.
Because the lives of people, like I have 4 daughters, and I can tell you for myself, a number of years ago, 2 miles from my home here in County Louth in Ireland, a convicted rapist, a guy called, Roman Crock. He was convicted of attempted rape of a 14-year-old girl in Derby a number of years ago. And when he came out of jail, I think he was in jail for a year and a half, where did he come? He came to Dunleer in County Louth because his mother had been given a free social house in the middle of the town. A convicted rapist, and of course when he arrived, there was a huge increase in burglaries in the area until he was caught, until a number of neighbours, and actually the local police did a very good job, caught the guy. He got 8 months in jail, and he got so much hassle out locally that he decided once he got out of jail, he was leaving Ireland completely. But there has been a huge increase in sexual assault, in crime, over the last number of years. For example, in 2022, there were 12 women murdered in Ireland. 5 of those were murdered by non-national. Given that 22% of the population are non-national, that's a very high percentage. So I would say it's not just correlation. I would move towards that there's actually a causal link between a large number of unvetted males into a country and an increase in crime.
Now, we know for certain that there are foreign gangs, and it's strange, actually. The countries committing crimes in various other countries via foreign gangs are sort of particular to particular countries. In the UK, it's largely been Albanian gangs. In other countries, it might be Turkish gangs, so on and so forth. Mexican gangs, if you're looking at America. But it's very clear that, you know, the international things like the drugs trade is international, human trafficking is international, sex trafficking, so on and so forth. And there are various nations who are, you know, pulling strings and levers, and these are big international events, and that, you know, we certainly need to control borders and know who's coming in, because we don't want to import organised crime. The thing that it seems to me that we're still not talking about, and this is despite the exposure of grooming gangs in this country. Every time I read the newspaper now and I follow the news across Europe, there seems to have been a rape gang operating in Brussels or operating in Paris. The amount of young girls now who seem to be being raped by, it's actually called the lover boy technique, I think, usually Somalian gangs, not always, North African gangs as well. The amount of young girls now falling victim to gang rape gang rape, that is one of the most horrific things that can happen to a little girl. And almost every single time, these gangs are coming from countries who, to put it in a mild manner, don't share our cultural values.
I think people have to begin to be honest and call it what it is. Because if, as you say, if we look at the ethnicity and culture and religion, let's talk what it is.
Now, for the cold hard facts. This is exactly the main problem. Hermann hits the nail right on the head.
Let's talk what it is. It's the Muslim Islamic religion of these people. They're normally Algerian, Pakistani, Somalian, almost without exception, all across England and various other countries as well. And it's rape jihad is what is going on. It is the damage to young girls and the humiliation of men within their culture as well, to come in, to dominate and say, we're in charge now. That's what it's about.
Now, let's talk a bit, and I always have to do sort of disclaimer, little asterisks, and say, you know, clearly not all Muslim men behave like this. But I think you are absolutely right in pointing out the common denominator with those countries that we are listing is that religion, or some of the cultural practices connected to that religion. I mean, let's not forget women in Iran aren't exactly having a lovely time, and the Taliban happily lob rocks at women accused of adultery and so forth. I mean, it's not exactly brand new information to people to say a lot of Muslim countries treat women pretty appallingly. But let's look at what's going on in Ireland now, because, you know, we think we've got a problem here in the UK when it comes to illegal immigration, the people coming over on boats. In Ireland, some of the scenes you're seeing in Dublin with these tent cities are absolutely out of control.
And that is what you're seeing in the tent cities is only the tip of the iceberg, because that's people living on the street. But the really serious problem is, one is a huge lack of housing, which has come about, and two is the increase in criminality, serious criminality. Now, between 2022 and 2023,
we just lost Herman then. I wanted to know what happened between 2022 and 2023. You still there, Herman? There he is.
Yes, happy days. In 1 year, there was like almost a 50% increase in murder in Ireland.
What?
So there was a 50% increase in the murder rate. I think it went up from 25 to 47 in 1 year. When you have a very sharp increase in the number of unvetted males, you don't know these people coming in, you don't know their name, you don't know who they are, you don't know where they're from, you don't know if they have a criminal record. Now, would you believe that 85% of people who apply for asylum in Ireland at Dublin Airport, 85% claim that they've lost their passport between getting on the plane and getting off at Dublin Airport. So they're coming into the country lying to us. So they've already lied to us. And do you know what? You have a large number of young males from any culture with nothing to do, hanging around all day, maybe drinking, etc. There's going to be trouble. And in Ireland, look.
Facts, facts, facts. This is so well to the point.
We've got to stop this practice of naivety or self-deception. We can see all across Europe. Sweden, you mentioned there.
Yeah.
Swedish TV did research there a number of years ago. They found out that 58% of all sex assault and rape was done by non-Swedish men who had arrived within the country within the last 5 years.
That's 58%. That is sort of knocking up to about 2/3 of rapes have happened to men who've turned up in the last 5 years. That is sick. Yeah. These women should be suing the blimmin' government.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Swedish government did a report. It's not just a small report, like a government-wide report, found out that a non-Swedish national was 2.5 times more likely to commit rape or sex assault than a Swedish man. So there's a huge causal link. And there's also a government report in Germany from 2016 done by Lower Saxony University, found out there had been a 92% increase in serious crime in Lower Saxony in 1 year. So a 10% increase, 92% of it was carried out by newly arrived asylum seekers.
Let's not forget those scenes that happened in Cologne. I think it was 2016, New Year's Eve. The women had gone out in their little dresses to party and celebrate, and there were over 1,500 reported sex attacks, assaults and rapes in that square in Cologne on New Year's Eve alone, 1,500, and it was all men, largely from the Middle East and North Africa. And they've got this technique, they do it, there's footage online. You see a journalist, a young female American journalist going to cover the Arab Spring uprisings in Egypt, and she's standing in the square reporting, and all of a sudden, what these men do is they see a woman and they surround her. And so they give each other protection. They surround this so no one else can get to her. They sort of, it's almost like when you see wolves picking off a lamb from the pack. And then they take it in turns to assault and rape her. This is something that they do in countries like that. Not everybody, of course, but they do. And this is now what we risk importing. We've seen it happen in Cologne. We need to wake up. We need to get real. We need to protect and prioritise women. And also just look at crime in general.
Alex is absolutely right here. This kind of behavior goes against every Western moral and our way of common decency and respect for each other.
Same report you're talking about from Sweden says that when it comes to robbery, non-natives are 4 times more likely to be committing that crime. It's mad. Hermann, thank you ever so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts on this issue. I mean, Peter, I just don't know where to begin with this.
It is staggering.
It's beyond an abrogation of duty that the government won't put the stats out in this country, because if they did, people would be tearing up paving slabs and lobbing them at police station windows.
I'm going to say Hermann, I think, is brilliant for pushing this stuff, and the numbers are staggering. But he said it was naivety. I don't think it's naivety. I think it's fear. The government won't do it, and the new government definitely won't do it, because they are terrified of being called Islamophobic, they are terrified of being called racist, and they are terrified of communities that they have pandered to for so long, and now they're going to have to say, well, wait a minute, this may not have been a good idea. I respect the Prime Minister of Sweden for saying, do you know what, we may have got this one wrong.
Yeah.
Do you think the British establishment is going to say, well, they got this wrong? No, they're going to double down like you've never seen.
Now, this can be looked at in 2 ways. 1. The government don't want to be classed as being called Islamophobic and racist, in which case we need a government with a pair of balls. Or 2, the government want this and are orchestrating it all for a bigger agenda. What are your thoughts?
Whilst we talk about the women and protection of girls, we also have to talk about the fact that there is an impact here on the gay community and the LGBT people.
Yes, absolutely.
The idea that some people, these people get to Calais, they get on a migrant boat, they come to the country, and they suddenly love the gays and the women. I'm sorry, in what world does that work? They've come from countries and cultures to which people like that are seen as lesser. They are seen as nothing, and that they don't just forget that. And they bring it into this country, and it is dangerous.
Their own women are sort of shackled at home and, walk out with burqas on and stuff, and then what they see on their mobile phones is pornography, and what they're being taught in some mosques, not all, but some mosques, is saying, oh, do you know what, white women, fair game.
Exactly. I mean, let's look at, since 2012, there's been a 462% increase in LGBT hate crime, and then look at the net migration figures. Again, do you think that's a coincidence? Here in London, just last year, there was 3,471 incidences, and London's supposed to be a big gay, friendly, loving city.
It's
to know absolute nonsense.
The man who bought the Trocadero in Soho is turning it into a mosque.
Yes.
Can't wait to hear the calls for prayer ringing out as the gay nightclubs empty.
I remember reading that story thinking, well, that's not going to go down well,
isn't it? Peter, thank you ever so much.